Hola, bienvenidos a Single Señorita. So this week, I'm going to be talking about part 2 of extracurricular activities. So last week I talked about introducing the first part of the vocabulary, and everything was built around answering 2 questions to get that really solid in my students before we move on to other more complicated grammar lessons. So this week we're doing a few more grammar topics than vocabulary, but of course they have their vocabulary. I gave them part 2 of the vocabulary. We practice it every day right after the warm-up. What we do is we go through a Quizlet set. So we'll either just talk with each other about the vocabulary. They'll have little points or questions to answer, or we go through the Quizlet vocabulary. Sometimes we'll play Quizlet live. Sometimes they'll be doing some kind of activity with the different games on Quizlet. So Monday, we're going to start out with grammar though. So I have PowerPoints over making comparisons, and what we are going to be going over is tanto como and tan como. So I have made them notes, and I have a PowerPoint that they follow along with. I found that having the notes that go with the PowerPoint, I used to have students just copy down the notes and trust that they were getting down the right information, and I would have 2 extremes. I would have the one student that wrote down every single word on the screen, and we would have to move slower. And then I had the students who barely wrote anything to do. They just did not have a reference. They wrote down as few words as possible, and then they didn't understand it. So if I just decided I'm just going to make the outline, they just fill in blanks so that they're having to pay attention, and usually the blanks are the important things that I want them to remember. So we're going to go through that on the first day. And then after they finish taking the notes, then I like to, especially on grammar topics that I know my students struggle with, I do what I call a side-by-side worksheet. So we have person A and person B. I have the students fold the page in half, and what they have to do is person A will start. They don't write anything down the first, so they're sitting next to each other where they can both see the worksheet. I have person A talk through the problem and how they would answer it, and then person B will have to say, sí, estoy de acuerdo, fantástico, perfecto, whatever they want to say in Spanish. If they agree, then person A writes it down. Person A then passes it to person B. Person B does the same thing, not writing, but actually talking their partner through what they're going to do. If partner B says perfecto, fantástico, whatever they want to say, then they write it down, and they keep passing it back and forth. This helps the students to process through the information. They get immediate feedback because their partner can tell them whether they're thinking right or wrong. And if they have a conflict, then they raise their hand and I come help them. But this helps because there's only one of me, but they can get feedback immediately from their partners. Now, if you don't prefer that, I also have a regular worksheet where you can just have them go through it. But I usually start with this and then give them independent practice later. So that's Monday's plan. Then on Tuesday's plan, we are revisiting what we did last week, which is answering 2 questions. This time I have a new list of questions using the new vocabulary words, which are mostly verbs. So they're going through and they're answering questions using the 2, and then on the back side they are constructing sentences using the vocabulary. So I have them write down the verb and what it means, and then they have to conjugate all the forms of that verb that they chose. They give me a sentence with the vocabulary and the word they chose, and then they have to illustrate what it means. And that will be day number 2. Day number 3, I give them this entrevistas page. They're going to interview 4 people in the class with the questions they answered yesterday. So they can actually take their questions from the day before. They find 4 different students, they sit down and they ask them all of the questions. They ask and answer in a full sentence, because guess what? Their quiz over this vocabulary will be a speaking. So I tell them over and over again, you are practicing for your quiz. So don't shortcut, don't just say sí or no, say the whole sentence. So after interviewing 4 people, they should be very familiar with the vocabulary. And then we're taking 2 days to learn about cuánto tiempo hace, because sometimes it takes the students a little bit of time to really get familiar with this. So again, I have a PowerPoint. They work through the notes going question by question, filling in the answers in the blanks. And then on the second day, they're going to have a practice page with different aspects of Cuánto tiempo hace. So they're going to have to interview some people and ask them questions and then write sentences about what they discovered from that person. And that's going to take us most likely 2 days, because typically on Friday we have some kind of game day. We'll probably do a look at over the vocabulary that they've been learning this week. All right, that is week 2 of extracurricular activities. I hope you have found something that will help you, and I'll put all of the links for the things that I'm actually using in the description. So I hope you have an awesome week. Adios, amigos.